Welcome to today's deep dive. You probably picture a moon mission as, that classic Apollo highlight reel, just a solitary boot print in the gray dust. But today we're looking at a massive, behind closed doors tactical pivot by NASA.
Yeah, it's a huge shift.
Right, and our mission for this deep dive is to understand why the promised lunar landing has fundamentally transformed into, like, a completely different beast. So let's unpack this. Humanity expected Artemis III to put American boots back on the moon, but the shocking reality in these sources, that actual lunar landing has officially been pushed to Artemis IV.
It is. It's a fundamental shift in the architecture.
Yeah.
But I mean, spaceflight isn't really an exercise in nostalgia, right? It's an unforgiving calculation of risk, timeline, and ultimately survival.
Exactly. So since Artemis III isn't actually landing on the moon anymore, what is the new plan? A multi-launch campaign. Let me try an analogy on you here.
Okay, go for it.
Instead of driving a brand new, completely untested car straight across a remote desert, which is the moon in this case, NASA is doing a high-stakes 2-week dress rehearsal right in their own driveway, meaning low Earth orbit.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And the logistics of that rehearsal are just staggering. You have a 4-person crew commanded by veteran Randy Bresnik and including ESA's Luca Parmitano.
Wait, the guy who survived the flooded space helmet?
That's the one. And their job is to test Blue Origin's life support systems for 2 days, detach, and then completely switch gears to dock with SpaceX's towering Starship version 3.
I have to push back here, though, because they are putting astronauts on a ship to test life support and then physically jumping to a rival company's spacecraft.
Sure.
That sounds incredibly dangerous to do for the very first time. Why not just test it unmanned?
Well, because you can't truly stress test a life support system without human respiration, thermal output.
Oh, right, body heat.
Yeah, you need real people to literally breathe, sweat, and live in the hardware to see if the scrubbers actually work. By keeping this hyper-complex crucible close to Earth, if something goes wrong during that critical transfer between Blue Origin and SpaceX, the crew has an anytime abort safety valve.
So they can just come home.
Exactly, they just come home.
Okay, that makes sense. But the sources point out this Earth orbit strategy completely alters the architecture for the eventual moon landing on Artemis IV.
Right, and what's fascinating here is the shift in orbital mechanics. So originally, the spacecraft were supposed to link up in a halo orbit.
Which is what, exactly?
It's a tricky, unstable path suspended in the gravity balance between the Earth and the Moon.
Which meant trying to aggregate massive amounts of fuel out in deep space.
Exactly, which introduces massive schedule risk.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to launch dozens of tanker ships and deal with cryogenic boil-off.
Boil-off, like evaporation.
Yeah, super chilled rocket fuel literally evaporates into space while you're trying to coordinate the docking. But now that critical docking happens safely in low Earth orbit, our cosmic backyard.
Wow.
From there, Starship acts less like a landing craft and more like a massive locomotive engine. It just acts as a brutal cosmic tugboat, pushing the attached Orion capsule across the void.
That is wild. And looking at the operational notes, NASA isn't just passively waiting for these companies to hit their marks.
No, not at all.
They've actually embedded their own subject matter experts directly onto the factory floors of SpaceX and Blue Origin to, force the schedule forward and bypass supply chain bottlenecks.
And they're also taking advantage of this low Earth orbit stay for the science division. They're using the time to establish clean contamination benchmarks for future missions.
Wait, explain the mechanics of that. How does floating around Earth help scientists analyze lunar dirt later?
Well, a spacecraft inevitably picks up microscopic contaminants just by sitting on a launch pad
Yeah.
and floating in Earth orbit.
Oh, sure. Dust, microbes.
Right. So by measuring that exact Earth footprint during Artemis III, scientists can mathematically subtract it as a baseline when they eventually analyze pristine lunar soil on Artemis IV.
So it ensures they aren't confusing Earth microbes with actual lunar data?
Exactly. It cleans up the science immensely.
Wow. Okay. To sum up this deep dive for you, Artemis III is definitely not a simple Apollo replay. It's really about forcing rival aerospace empires to figure out how to interoperate in low Earth orbit.
Yeah, laying a sustainable interplanetary foundation before we ever touch the lunar surface.
Which leaves us with a critical unknown to think about. If we connect this back to your driveway analogy, well, my driveway analogy, NASA is relying heavily on rival commercial empires to dock drastically different engineering hardware flawlessly in the vacuum of space.
Right. So as we gear up for Artemis IV, what happens when private corporate timelines and public exploration goals inevitably clash?